first attracted me to this project was Ron Howard. I'd met Ron a couple of times through the years. Spoken to him about a couple of different projects, and I just am a fan of his films, and I'm a fan of his, what I feel is his, or a personal perspective that he may have. There's a happy ending in this film that is so earned and is not contrived, because the contrivance were the events as they took place. But there's also a great sadness that, for me personally, reading the script and then becoming more aware of the history of the time and what happened, is very real and very profound. And Ron is just, and the other actors I'm working with are just breathing what feels like breathing new life into the script every day, and making it more and more and more real and more and more and more immediate. There was one common interest on the table, and that common interest was the well-being, the safety of the 13 males, the 13 boys, young men also, who were trapped in the cave. And so you had all these people from, obviously, Thailand, Australia, America, Belgium, the UK, coming from all over the world with this kind of steely focus on the rescue and the saving of these lives. There's always extraordinary things that happen in life. We read about them in the past and they'll happen in the future, but just still find it hard to believe, what was it that, of the 13 that were trapped in the cave, of that 13, that they were brought out safely, is still astonishing. John in our script is someone who is very, most importantly, he's a decent man. Just that, he's a decent man. He's incredibly solid, and is aware of the responsibility that we all have to ourselves and to others to do our best at all times. Just that. That's John. Vigo, he's always digging and looking for relevance and looking for moments and looking for, what he perceives to be the truth that is often buried beneath behaviors and buried beneath the obfuscation of language. It's pretty impressive to watch him work and to be close to his process on this. Some of the spaces we're swimming through, the roof is right here and there's pinch points and you've got 4 tanks, and it feels dicey. And it makes me, again, it brings me back to how, in God's name, did they achieve what they achieved on that day, a few years ago. Thai people that I'm working with, the actors every day, are so, Tira, are Tui and Pooh and all of them, they're so present and they're magnetic, and this is important for them. This story is an important story for the Thai people. As the world was watching, the Thai people were going through it at a whole other level and depth of experience, because it was their children.
It seems like a really good time for a movie story about something positive that transcends boundaries, that's not about one tribe, one country. It's not really about money, power, certainly not about division. It's a lot of people came together to save the lives of 13 relatively ordinary young people in Thailand, in the north of Thailand. That was a remarkable moment, and I hope that the movie story, the recreation that we're doing, will maybe inspire people to think in that way. That it's a really good example of people being selfless, of pulling together without a thought to where the people are from that they're trying to save, and where the team of rescuers is from, and all the support team. They were from everywhere, which was great. It was wonderful. And I thought that's very promising as an idea for a story. And then the fact that the events are so dramatic. If we can pull it off, it'd be great. And the further they got into it, in a way, when they were able to find these kids way in the cave, 2.3 kilometers in there, where the Thai Navy SEALs, nobody had been able to find them. They found them and they were alive, What they expected is to find them dead after 10 days in there. And they were alive. And they knew that they wouldn't be able to bring them out. That's what it looked like. So they felt really bad about it. It put them in a difficult, everybody was so happy when the world, outside world and the media realized, these kids are alive, great. Thinking, okay, we're there. It's like not even the beginning of it. I don't think any of them thought it would work, really. I mean, if you ask those guys, they would tell you, well, we were hoping that we'd get 1 or 2, maybe 3 out of the 13. That would be an accomplishment, because it's either none of them or maybe the chance of 1 or 2. There's no guarantee of any of them coming out, but you got to try, was the idea. I got to meet a whole bunch of new actors, not just Colin or Tom or, Paul or Joel from Australia, but also the Thai people. You get to meet and interact with people that you've never met. I didn't know Ron Howard really before, so that was a great experience. And I have to say that working with Joel in particular I really enjoyed it. He's someone who's acting and directing I've admired for a while, so that was great. But as soon as a couple come out, people think, oh, great, they figured out how to do it. It's going to be easy. They put even more pressure on their shoulders. So in a way, each kid they brought out, as much as the world was elated, I suppose, for the people actually doing this rescue, executing it, there was an increasing pressure on them, they felt, as they went along. It became worse and more difficult. And also the conditions changed. The cave started flooding. It started raining again. By the end, it was really touch and go. And it's an amazing story. I mean, if it hadn't happened and you wrote this down, you say, well, this is, of course, it's a movie. It could not possibly happen. The level of, the attention to detail, the rigorousness of her production design and the effort that Ron was clearly making as captain of the ship to get this right was really encouraging. So for an actor, you walk out of set like that, it's real. You dive in a cave like that, it's completely real and scary and everything it needs to be. So I was really pleased. And obviously, yes, it makes you, if it had all been blue or green screen and, okay, imagine that there's stalactites. Imagine that it's a very narrow space. Imagine that there's a rope here, that you lose the rope and you're lost. Imagine that the water's murky, et cetera, et cetera. No, we didn't have to imagine. It was all there. That's what I hope that people get from the movie. We could get along with people who are different. I can get along with people who are different than me, whose language I don't understand, whose motivations I would have to learn about before I could judge them, hopefully. And maybe we can work together.
There's something that captures the imagination or the interest and the compassion and the empathy of the world, the whole world, when people are just sort of going about their job or their life and they get in trouble. And then you add the fact that they were a group of children, and that, I think, added a whole other level of empathy. This script, plus the whole team involved, was something that really, really caught my interest. And certainly the idea of stepping into Harry's shoes. And I will say also that for everything I thought I knew about the rescue operation, I knew, the tip of the iceberg. And it was through getting involved in this project that I learned about other aspects, namely how much of a high wire act it was to get them out and the measures that they took. So, I was interested in working with Ron and have been for a long time. Vigo as Rick is pretty fantastic. I've worked with a lot of actors who you can tell in the room on the day in front of the camera that there's a real shift from person to character going on. I really felt with Vigo that was the case, that he was taking on board a lot of the aspects of the real Rick. and in a really sort of subtle fashion. I think that what it reminds me of is just the stakes that were involved for these guys, what they were going through, what they were having to operate under really intense pressure, knowing that at the end of the day, they might be sending these kids to their death, and that they would become the name attached to that death, you know? So I don't really know how you reconcile that stuff. And certainly for us as actors, we're just going through the motions of, you know, let's pretend to be Harry and let's pretend to be Rick. And, you know, we follow the script and we follow the line and we learn what we can learn. But there's something really, really specially embedded in this whole story. Every time I watch any documentary footage, it really gets to me. So I'm very honoured to be a part of telling that story. I think that the real way to pay tribute to someone on screen that really lived, or to get close to embodying them, is to find a way to understand their spirit, what makes them tick, the things they did, and to reverse engineer or to understand from that what's really inside of them and what drives them. And sounding like them, looking like them, walking like them doesn't necessarily get as close to that person as doing more of a deeper questioning about who they are. We had an incredible education, incredible bunch of stunt guys and Navy divers looking after us. And had, you know, it's you get the sort of A-level crash course, you know, it's like, hey, guys, here's some basics, and now do some really complicated stuff. And good luck, you know. And everybody stepped up to the challenge. In fact, it felt like everybody really leaned into the challenge, or leaned into it enthusiastically, you know. I think I don't really know what a Vigo looks like without a wetsuit on. Every time I turn up to work, he's got a full wetsuit, he's ready to go. In order for us to get on film for Ron what is needed to really kind of sell some of the danger of it, is really going through some pinch points and little S-bands and stuff, and diving with either, you know, dummies or stunt people, and massive respect to the kids, the Thai kids, who were comfortable enough with us to play still or play unconscious with their hands tied behind their back and their feet tied together, and allow us to dive them underwater. I thought it was tough to do it, but I'm very aware that it's tough just to put your life in somebody else's hands like that. So, but everybody's well looked after. You know, Ron is incredible, but Ron's also assembled an incredible team that make us look fantastic. I mean, you know, in particular in this film, the whole support crew in terms of the diving aspects. But then we wouldn't be diving if it wasn't for Molly and Molly's incredible sets and that construction team. Like, those sets are amazing to look at in person, and then you put them up on screen. I was always like, oh, I hope this is going to look okay. We're going to be literally diving inside a factory, you know. But if it can work, it's extraordinary because you control the environment. And I think what Molly has done with that at the Thai village, the entrance to the cave, it's some of the best production design I've seen, and a really difficult thing to do and to get right. Part of the excitement for me when I go and work with a director that I admire, and I really admire Ron and his work, is just to kind of, you have your own suppositions about what makes them good or how they operate on set, and then you get to experience it firsthand. You know, he has an impressive ability to handle something of a huge scale. Now, this film goes from like the most tiny claustrophobic personal moments underwater to these incredibly grand cinematic, you know, spaces filled with people, crowds and movement. And the amount of characters that he's keeping his eye on, you know, story terms. And I was like, you know, it's an impressive skill to be able to hold all that in your head, to be constantly checking in and asking the right questions. And I think 13 Lives, while that story, you know, the drama of it is it could have gone the other way, and it couldn't have worked out as positively as it did. But the fact that it did is just, it's just like, feels like one of those stories that you just go, it gives me some hope that, you know, people know how to lean on each other, and people are willing to kind of pick up the slack. People are willing to sort of put make a few sacrifices for other people. You know, so I felt thrilled to be involved with it, even just for that aspect.
Well, I've made a number of movies over the years based on real events, and this was one where I wanted to be as journalistic about it as I possibly could be. I felt like that the suspense, the emotion, the uncertainty, the drama really was going to exist within the details, and the spirit of authenticity, and you know, my ability as a filmmaker to convey these moments in a powerful but fundamentally authentic way. I am talking about, you know, the people who were making the operation run, who were, you know, working around the clock to feed people, to you know, to make the caves accessible, despite the coming rains that were, you know, that were just you know, making a muck and mire, you know, sort of everywhere people turned. It was, you know, none of it could have happened if all of it hadn't happened. And I think that's a fascinating reality of this particular mission. So everybody jumped on their bikes. They were going to go to the cave. They were going to explore the cave for a few hours. And then they were going to go back to a birthday party. And everyone was excited about it. They got into the cave, and clouds rolled in, and freakishly intense downpour began. And the boys were trapped. There was flash flooding in the cave, and they couldn't be found. Government officials came in, Navy SEALs were deployed. They made a dive. The current was too strong for them. One thing led to another, and real despair set in, because you know, suddenly there really wasn't a great outlook for these boys, and the monsoon season, which had struck early, was you know, imminent, and the cave, it could very likely flood to the point where there was just no hope at all. It was because there was so much emotion around this and urgency, as the boys had reached this point where they were 9, 10 days in the cave. People were, you know, could barely imagine that they could even be alive still, and there's a lot of chaos around the entire operation at that point. Initially, they went in, of course, hoping to find the kids if they could, but primarily just to lay line so that, you know, follow-up volunteers and the Navy SEALs could have an easier time navigating the cave and continuing this search. However, they reached a point where they were just about, you know, out of line, and you can't go into a cave without laying a line because you'll never find your way back out. Running low on oxygen, and they decided to try one more chamber. So they went through a very flat, narrow passage where literally their chests and back were scraping at times, and they made it through that, and lo and behold, they discovered the boys and the coach, and everyone was alive. It was miraculous. so many things that could have, should have gone wrong that it's hard not to view this as a miracle. However you define a miracle, and what leads human beings to a miraculous outcome. I hope the movie is a really powerful is a really powerful case study in sort of the anatomy of a miracle. This story is so full of suspense and mystery. It's just fraught with danger, not just physical danger. It's also emotional danger. What's it going to mean if there is a misstep? What does it take? What price is paid to try to achieve this thing? And the collaboration with the Thai cast has been so important. But we also brought in Thai co-producers who are monitoring the script, monitoring the adaptation, the translation into Thai. In some instances, helping us work with the actors to improvise new approaches to scenes, to try to make sure that the movie is authentic, contemporary, and emotionally and culturally as honest as it can possibly be. So I've just found the process to be fascinating, but I have a real sense of responsibility to the Thai people in my mind, and the culture and the movie. Well, it's a very inspiring story, and I hope people are inspired by it. I do think it acknowledges, respects, and even celebrates a level of volunteerism that is very unique. There are a lot of very powerful stories of really trained professionals going in and doing what they do, doing what they're paid to do. Yes, giving it everything that they have and beyond. But it's born out of a sense of duty, sometimes to a country, sometimes to an idea, but often to a job, to a career. And that's not the case with all the central characters in this movie. And I think that's one of the aspects of it that's most inspiring. They really did not know what was going to work, and there was a lot of improvisation along the way. There was a lot of risk taking, and exploration, and problem solving on the fly that is pretty remarkable to behold, and a lot of fun to build into these scenes.
I think he was very, very moved by the story itself and by the whole thing of the whole world coming together to do something extraordinary and saving these lives. And it was an international event. I think that was it, and just the miracle of it. It is actually a miracle that all these boys came out alive. Well, there are parts that are extremely narrow. So it will be the narrow bits, and then also the levels of water that kept sort of changing and rising. So there are aspects that are more, there's a T-junction also where you can get confused and you don't know where to go. So there were moments where they would take a wrong turn and get lost. Mr. Howard, Ron is a master. It's watching him work is fascinating, just because you can see that he is really making the film in his head as he's shooting it and understanding how it's all going to piece together and fit together. And so he is like a conductor, too, when he is working with the actors, and you can see him understanding performance in such a fine way. And then also just understanding action in a way that is a real gift. Bill Mortensen is playing Rick and is doing a superb job with it. It's been fascinating because the divers have actually been here. Rick's been here and spent a lot of time with Viggo, and you can really sort of see this process of absorption that Viggo has gone through and trying to really become Rick. and he's done it beautifully. You know, it's just fun to watch them work and find their language and their banter, and I think the locations are such that they have to find their way in them. This is not, you know, a normal drama. The location itself becomes another character, and how they maneuver within that has been really fascinating. Having them here really has been an amazing privilege and a gift to the actors and to everybody. I mean, Iran can always call on them to come in and ask them if this was really how it happened, if this is how it looked. The same goes with, you know, with both Colin and Vigo, that they're there for them and can commune with them to get it right. Sayumbu is an extraordinary cinematographer and has done a lot of wonderful international films to date. And the fact that he was Thai was a huge plus, just because he'd be able to work comfortably with the Thai actors. He also knows, of course, the habitat, the kinds of locations that this story took place in. So there comes with that, it's just an authenticity and a truth. He's also just a wonderful human being, but it's been a real gift to have him with us. She's basically recreated these locations in such a way that it's too bad that we can't create a theme park afterwards. You know, you go into them and just the quality of the walls, the color of the water, the topography is just spot on. And then just how the ingenuity with which he's used, you know, figured out how to do things, create these tunnels. And you look at how they've been constructed, and it's just fabulous. It's an event. And I think that actually right now, to get back into the cinemas, we need events. And also it's a really uplifting story about people coming together to do something extraordinary, which I think is also something that we all can use. We need uplifting tales of overcoming adversity. So I think that this could be one of those great things for people to share in a communal way, which we haven't really been able to do properly for a while now.
This is a big situation in Thailand where it's, the 12th boy and the coach is stuck in a cave, and then like everyone, like every nation, like come and helps the boys out of the cave. Actually, I think they are just a normal kids. They're just a normal boys that they love soccer, and just it's just an accident that one day they want to go to the cave, and then the accident happened, and then they stuck in a cave. He is the one that in charge to take care of all of the boys, and he with the boy for like many years. In the boy like when they were like a child, and then like it's feel like coach raised them, and one day you lead them to be in danger. So I think it's apparently that coach will think that it's all his fault, that he can't take care of all of the boys, and you know, like when he's stuck in the cave for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, the boy is crying, the boy is hungry, and you can't do nothing. You can do nothing. Yeah, and I think his thought is it's all his fault. Rick, Sean, Chris, Harry, everyone like come to help, and from England. Yeah, because like you know, like Thai diver or Thais, we trying to like diving into the place that the boy was stuck in, but they cannot reach that. So when the news like spread out, the England diver decide to come to Thailand and help them. I think nowadays the world have a lot of, you know, like bad energy, or like people we not spreading love. But this movie will show that everyone do something not for yourself, but for anyone else. It's just about like spreading love for each other. It's about helping each other, and it's about unite like every country, no matter where you came, but you to being as one to do something great first thing is it's quite hard to get through into the place where the boy is stuck, and it's dangerous because if you miss something, you can die. Like some man, just Sam that he did. But yeah, so everything is, I think it's very dangerous. But still, everyone, like they they're trying as hard as possible to do that, to help all of them out like safely. Ron, he is so nice and he is so kind. Uh, at the first time that I tell you when I went to Chamonix, okay, and that is the first time that I have a chance to see Ron, and yeah, like I'm really nervous because he's a big director, and yeah, but he's so nice, and he take me to inside the Chamonix, and he told me that this is Chamonix why we build it, and then the water like this, and yeah, I'm really like I'm so happy working with Ron, and yeah, it's such a great opportunity. It's such a big opportunity for me. I think the audience will get like the good energy, the good vibe from this movie. I think, as I told you, because it's about spreading love. It's about like unite, do something for another one, not for yourself. And I think that nowadays we need that in our world.
The story is really about, in my opinion, and at least how the director actually really pitched it to me at the beginning, was really about how people, overcome a really great obstacle, and doing it by having, working with people from around the world, because it was such an international effort. And in the end, they did it because everybody came together to basically help these children. I just really liked how open he is and how much he understands and values authenticity, and how much he values performances, and how much he values like good dialogue. We've made a lot of changes sometimes to the dialogue, and sometimes he said, hey Raymond, if you want to suggest the change to this speech, go ahead, I'll take a look at it and see if I like it. And sometimes he says, yeah, good, I like this, and we just go with it. And that's rare, and I think it's just really, he's just a very generous person in terms of his patience and also his ability to determine. But at the same time, he also is not somebody who would just say yes to everything. And that's what I like about him. He would, he'll make up his mind. And, sometimes he'll just say, no, I think this is fine. And I'll accept it because, it makes sense. He was really open to a lot of these suggestions, and, the cast kind of grew more and more. And we felt that, it was really important. And Ron has been honestly really fantastic in trying to make sure that things are right. Even if it's just a minor character, like for example, we have, our monk, Kruba Bunchum, we insisted, on that they're able to do real chants, and then Ron agreed. And all of these little things, we've always had this dialogue about, how do we make it as accurate as possible? And since, we started, he's been really, really fantastic in terms of being very sensitive about Thai culture, about Thai caste, about who can do what. And I think the script evolved tremendously with his help to make sure that, these things are represented correctly. And I think that so far, so great, because I think it's been fantastic because not only are they good in their roles, but they've, kind of formed a little bit of a family. So all the actors know each other very well. And they've been doing, we've been also doing, dinners with them, like the whole group. And they're just, cooking for each other. And I think that it's just been a real family kind of feeling during the shooting of the film. And of course, not everybody has scenes all the time. So like, then they're able to kind of like, go off into their own little groups to do different things. And I think it's been fantastic for them. And also, the communication also with, actors such as, Vigo and Colin and Joe have been really fantastic. They've been really great, very encouraging, and vice versa. So I think the cast have been fantastic. I really like everybody, and everybody has gotten along super well. So that's one of the things that I'm really, really happy about. So the character of Naronsak was interesting because we were trying to find somebody that reminded us of Paul Giamatti because watching the real governor, he had this charisma about him, but he's also kind of quirky and is kind of unusual, especially in Thailand, because he was somebody who was almost comical, but not really. And he had a little bit of this charm about him. So we were thinking about that. And, Ron and I were talking about it and said, yeah, if we could find a Thai Paul Giamatti. And I remember going, oh my gosh, that's going to be nearly impossible because that's a very specific thing. And I can't think offhand of who would have this kind of charisma until we met, Poo Sajak. And, during his casting, he 100% had that kind of feel to him. And he's been fantastic, honestly. Like, he's been doing a really great job. He's been nailing every take that he does. And he has that. He has that charisma about him. The coach is an interesting character because the main person, the real coach in real life, he is very empathetic, really, really sweet, and feels a lot of this burden of and responsibility for having basically taken the kids into the cave. And so what Ron really wanted was somebody who was able to be empathetic and who would be able to really have a range of emotions from happiness, because of course at the beginning when they're haven't gone to the cave, he's this guy who is like, who loves kids and who's like a leader that everybody looks up to. But in the cave he has to feel this guilt, this sense of responsibility, and there's a range of emotions that he has to go to. So it was a little tricky to actually find the right character, and we did audition a number of them. And James stood out. It's because he's just a terrific actor. One of the first scenes we shot were all with the kids in Chamber 9, and even all the actors, Ron, everyone have been super impressed with them, that how professional they've been and how good they've been. And these are kids who've never acted before. And the Australian kids were the same. They were like, when they had to, go into these diving gears and then have to actually go underwater, they're so fearless. And it's just incredible. We're like, wow, they're just so professional. And we're just really happy that they are, they've done such a great job. And moreover, they've all become really good friends. I just hope that audiences are moved by the story, by the courage of the many people who are working on the, in the rescue, not only just divers, but some of the decisions that, Thai officials have to make, some of the things that, people really have to risk in order to basically make this, really impossible feat happen, including the Thai Navy SEAL who lost his life. There's just so many things that, I hope that people are touched by and can feel hopeful that, the world is moving ahead and we can look forward to better things to come.
Hi, my name's Rick Stanton, known around here as Real Rick. I'm one of the two people that went to Thailand initially from the UK and was one of the pair of divers who first found the boys after they'd been missing for 10 days. PJ, the producer, contacted us way back in, I think, October 2018. And we were in negotiations with him for quite a while and other people before we decided to team up with him and make the film. But we had no idea who was going to make it, who was going to fund it, who was going to direct it. It just seemed like our best option at that time, and it paid off. When we first found out it was Ron, it was quite exciting because obviously the direct comparison is Apollo 13. I'm sure that's most of our sort of type of person. That's our favourite, one of our favourite films that stood the test of time. And for him to be telling a reenactment of something that had already happened was really good. And he was like passionate about telling it with drama and accuracy. And although he actually didn't know so many details, what he said resonated with all of us as being the person to do it. I was 17 years old. I'd grown up watching Jacques Cousteau, was quite popular on the television back then. So I was grown up looking at that, interested in the underwater world. But there happened to be one program on the telly one evening, and it was about cave diving in the UK. And there was just something about it that resonated with me. And I looked at it and knew that's exactly what I want to do, be a cave diver. There was a UK caver living in that region called Vernon Unsworth. He is pretty much the expert on Tham Luang, that cave, and he was involved very early on in the rescue efforts. And he understood that despite there being hundreds of people on the scene, that it needed specialist cave diving rescuers. And he put forward my name along with John Valanthan and Rob Harper as people he knew that had experience, in Rob's case of the cave and in John in my case of cave diving rescues. He understood that clearly that's what was missing and what was needed. Viggo's playing myself, and I've been interacting with him for probably 4 or 5 months now, just talking through the script, him getting to know me, getting to know my accent. I met up with him before, and it's just interesting seeing him as he got to learn me more. A lot of people think that when we found the boys, that was a really exciting moment and really joyous, which, I mean, it was, but it was hugely tempered by the responsibility of knowing that it would probably fall on our shoulders to bring them out, and we had no idea how to do that. So even whilst we were with them on that first encounter and then the dive out, we were just lost in thought. How on earth are we going to get them out? Talking more specifically about Viggo, he's clearly a water person. I identify people as water people, people that are happy in the water. Viggo's clearly that. He's a swimmer. He loves being in the water. The conditions, firstly underfoot, were horrendous. It was ankle-deep mud. It was raining continuously for at least 36 hours. There were people everywhere, milling around, no coordination. I'm not sure we really were overwhelmed with the chaos, to be honest. The water was really strong. It was really fast flowing. It was hard to walk against it. This isn't just diving, we're mainly walking, but very fast flowing. You had to know how to operate in moving water conditions. That was challenging and could have been dangerous. But there was another section in the flooded bit of cave just approaching chamber 4 where there was a very tight slot we had to negotiate, and the line was quite tricky and intricate. We could have probably bypassed that, but we didn't have time. We just left it as it was, and that was sort of the danger area, and that's where Chris got into trouble later on in the rescue, on the last day of the rescue. So leading up to the last boy coming out, there was no certainty that we'd get them all out alive. So even when we had 12 out and we were waiting for the last one, there was still no certainty we'd have 100% success. It was only when that last boy came out alive that we were able to, and we were all in the third chamber, and that was quite a moment, because then it was only then we could all relax. I know everybody in the world was watching the events, and I understand that most people were emotionally involved in the boys' fate, but I'd like them to know what was involved in delivering the boys, and also the fact, how it all came together, the collaboration, the planning, all those things aligning.
In general, we just discuss about the situation and the general idea of the project, where it's come from. It's from the British diver. Then when we have the script, which is, it's quite reflect the reality of the event itself. So we kind of, keep talking about it, about people, about the event itself, and then we watching a lot of documents, to try to understand what's happened. We just find a way to solve the technical problem to have that fit into our narrative, sort of things. So for example, if you think about the event itself, what happened is most of the action, or most of the reality, is happened in the cave, which is dark. But actually it's not dark, because of when people get into the dark, they bring their own light torches, like a flashlight, helmet torch. So this is, become sort of inspiration to make it real, to make you feel you are inside what happened at that moment. Like my first question to Ron is, Ron, do you think we shot on films or digital? Right? Like to me, if it's on film, it's going to be very difficult also because of the camera itself. You have the magazine, it's bigger. So if you have to go into some very tight space, it's going to be, it's doable, but you need certain kind of technical and the way of thinking to deal with it. But if you go to digital, the way of you thinking is going to be different. So this is going to be a very first, discussion about between me and Ron. So, of course, digital technology, digital camera, let us, make things easier because of the size of the camera. It's smaller, and so it's, may not be able to go into tight space, with the diver. Because of this is one of the key facts of the difficulty of this situation also. I mean, also this is one of the first discussion. I mean, then I had the feeling that the camera not exists in this movie. I mean, one of the things that I always talk to Ron is like, we have to let the character lead the camera. If they have to move, if they have to turn, if they have to do anything, they have the freedom to do it and lead my camera to what to see. Like if I want to see the cave, it means that my character wants to see the cave. Ron is very experienced director. He's like a big chef. He knows everything about how to cook, how to make it. It's just, what technique he want to use, what kind of thing, what equipment he want to use. He have construct every, what he want to tell in this scene. So he is very experienced director, very professional. So for me, what I'm doing and what my intention is, I'm listening to him. I'm listening to him very carefully, very, very every word, even every gesture, because of then I can make it happen for him. What he think in his mind. So I carry it out. That is my point. It's unbelievable. I think it's because of people holding hand together, never give up, seeing each other heart. If we are together and open enough, and you see other people's hearts, so actually people can do a lot of things that seem a miracle. But actually, the miracle is not from anywhere. It's not from heaven. It's not from anywhere. It's from our hand. Yeah, this is also reflect very much the idea of Buddhism, which is the exists in Thailand, in that particular place of the world. So that is that is the thing that I hope that we can carry out, to have the feeling, have the audience feeling about that.
This incredible story of strangers helping people and putting their life on the line to help these kids. There was an interview that the boys did on one of the daytime TV shows, and one of the kids that they rescued said, "We didn't know you. You were strangers, and you were willing to put your life in danger to get us out." And it really just touched me so much. I thought, my God, that's the kind of hopeful story that I think it really touches everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, what country you're in. Chris, I didn't know this until talking to him. He'd never done a rescue dive before. He was on the committee, but he was kind of more of an admin guy. And he told me that he was actually thinking of stepping down because he likes to be practical and be in the cave doing things. So he said he was really looking for an opportunity to prove himself. And Rick and John knew that, and they said, well, let's give Chris a shot. Because he's a very, very talented diver. He'd proved himself numerous times. He'd done expeditions himself, organizing them. So he was the least experienced of them in that he'd never done a rescue dive, but he had done many, many cave dives. So yeah, it was kind of trial by fire. I mean, it's talk about being thrown in at the deep end. He really was tested to the max on his first go. This is what's so wonderful about this story. He's just an everyday guy. He doesn't have any sort of special things about him. You know, he's just an everyday man. But his hobby is almost unrelatable, you know, because the panic and the fear that we would, you know, all have being in a small confined space underwater, that's where he finds his peace and his quiet, and that's his happy place, really. And it was a little bit of a journey to get my head into that, because as soon as I got into the little caves underwater, I just started to panic straight away. But slowly over the weeks training with it, I found actually it is really fun and enjoyable. So I've managed to bridge that gap a little bit. I think Viggo's one of the most focused actors I've ever worked with. His attention to the smallest detail, not just about what he's doing, it's about what everyone's doing. He wants to know how everything's working and sort of see this picture in his mind. And he's almost got like no ego to him at all. You know, it's a real pleasure working with him because he just wants to get involved all the time. We have this joke that every time, you know, we all do a dive through a tunnel, Viggo's sort of just in there first. He's the first guy in. He's just sort of so hands-on. He practices his fin technique in the swimming pool in the hotel. Like, he's really just an amazing hard worker, and just sort of a wonderful, relaxed, gentle man. I'm always interested in art reflecting life in a way. And I remember the more research I did into Chris and the group of divers that doing this rescue, I realized the parallels are quite amazing, because Chris felt like, you know, he'd been diving for a long time. He was very competent and knew that he loved doing it and knew how to do it. But he idolized these guys who'd been doing it for a lot longer than him. And that's kind of the same with me. You know, when I got cast in this, I was going, my God, it's Viggo Mortensen and Colin Farrell and Joel Edgerton and Ron Howard, and I get to be part of this team. And it was something that I was aware at first. I was thinking, oh, you know, don't be starstruck by them or anything. You know, they're your colleagues. But that is exactly what Chris felt. You know, he said, my God, I'm actually on a dive now with these guys that I've admired for years. I'm part of it. I need to prove myself, but I know I can do it. And yeah, it's quite a wonderful parallel, I think, something I can draw on. I mean, it was, we started from basic, just in a very big open pool. We've got an amazing team. Andy, who's our dive master, and his team, we all get our own stunt double and dive trainer. Mine's a wonderful guy called Kenny. And they just went through from the most basic, we're going to go down, get comfortable with the water. Then you have to sort of learn how to like evacuate your mask, change rigs underwater. And then they slowly got us into smaller and smaller spaces. So we got used to the real small proximity of underwater diving, taking away our visibility. Until before you know it, you know, you think, oh, only 10 days ago, I was panicked just about being in a pool. And now I'm cramming myself through this tiny space underwater. You've got to, at times you get properly, I got really, really stuck about my fifth dive. I got properly stuck. I couldn't go forward or go backwards. I didn't know what was stuck. And I was thinking, this is it. This is where I die, in a pool in Australia. Well, with Rick and Jason, it was kind of it's wonderful having them on set, because just the practicalities as actors constantly in a scene, the script is so bare and stripped back in terms of dialogue. They're not huge character pieces in terms of dialogue. It's just what's happening in between moments, the looks that you have and energy, and just hearing from them just how tired they were, what they did in their downtime. Because quite a lot of the time we'll be playing a scene that we're all just quietly sat having some food. And just to be able to know what was going through your mind. Were you scared at this point? You know, after your first dive, were you a bit calmer? The truth of the matter is, Jason said, he said, look, we were scared the whole time. He said, you wouldn't have known it. You know, we were focused. He goes, but of course, we were terrified. I think the most daring idea for the rescue was to sedate these boys and dive them out. Ultimately, Rick has he said to us many times, what they thought they were going to do really is dive out dead bodies. You know, that it was a retrieval mission to bring their bodies out. That's what he's had to do many times in his career as a rescue diver, is go in and bring out bodies. The idea of bringing that many kids, the idea of finding them alone was crazy. And the idea of bringing them out one by one, the fact that they got them all out was an absolute miracle. I think Ron is one of the warmest, most wonderful people I've ever met. He's constantly happy, excited, hardworking, creative. You see him walk. We were talking this morning. He's got this way of. He's almost always looking for the frame where his camera can go. So he kind of walks around with his hands like this and just sees something and imagines it. He's constantly working, but he doesn't make it look hard. He never sort of stresses. He makes it look like it's fun all the time. Working with the Thai cast is amazing because they're beautiful people, and we commented very early on all of the actors who are from Western actors, just the difference in their energy. They're so they all applaud at the end of each. As soon as you say that scene complete, all of them, it doesn't matter if they're background artists or anything, they clap and they're really excited about it. It's such an important story for them, and you can see the enthusiasm in their eyes.
มันเป็นเรื่องราวที่คือในเรื่องนี้ผมเล่นเป็นสมานนะครับแล้วก็มันเป็นเรื่องราวที่สิ่งที่น่าจดจำที่เกิดขึ้นครั้งหนึ่งในประเทศไทยซึ่งก็คงไม่มีใครอยากให้เกิดขึ้นนะครับก็ดีใจมากที่มีโอกาสได้เป็นส่วนหนึ่งในภาพยนตร์เรื่อง13 Life ครับ
My name is Weir.
Yeah, sure.
The character that I play in this film, 13 Lives, is a story about 13 kids who got stuck in the cave. This is quite a unique story that was not really meant to happen, which came about. But he's also very fortunate and glad and happy that he's able to be a part of this story on the big screen.
จริงๆแล้วผมเรียนดำน้ำมาก่อนหน้านี้แล้วนะครับแล้วก็ได้มีโอกาสได้ไป practice เกี่ยวกับการดำน้ำการ rescue ในการดำน้ำมาแล้วก็รู้สึกว่ามีความตื่นเต้นนิดนึงเพราะส่วนใหญ่หนังทั้งหมดเราจะครึ่งเราจะอยู่ในถ้ำซึ่งเป็นการถ่ายทำที่ค่อนข้างยากแต่ว่าผมก็เห็นโปรดักชันแล้วก็รู้สึกว่าอึ้งมากเพราะว่านี่เป็นครั้งแรกที่ผมมีโอกาสได้มีส่วนร่วมในโปรเจกต์ที่ใหญ่แล้วก็โปรเฟชชั่นอลขนาดนี้ซึ่งไม่รู้สิผมรู้สึกว่าผมดีใจแล้วผมรู้สึกว่าถ้าผมไม่รับงานนี้ผมไม่รู้จะทำอะไรในชีวิตนี้ละ
So leading up to this production, he went through thorough training and practice regarding the rescue. He was very excited to be a part of this project, knowing that this would be his first time of such a big production. So he sort of it was a no-brainer, and he just had to be a part of it, regardless.
Yeah, a little bit. The first time I met him, Vigo and Corinne Farrell, and he's a big guy, and I'm a big fan. He come to me and say to me, "You are Weir?" Yes. My name's Weir. Nice to meet you. คือผมรู้สึกว่าคนที่เขาเป็นนักแสดงที่ยิ่งใหญ่สำหรับผมมากๆแล้วนี่เป็นอีกเหตุผลหนึ่งที่ผมอยากที่จะเล่นภาพยนตร์เรื่องนี้ด้วยผมชอบผลงานของเขาทั้งสองคนแล้วก็รู้สึกตื่นเต้นกับการทำงานกับเขาแม้ว่าจะไม่ได้เข้าฉากกันเยอะมากแต่ว่ามันคุ้มค่ามากกับการที่ผมเดินทางมากักตัว14 วันแล้วก็มาทำงานกับ Ron Howard มาเจอนักแสดงมืออาชีพซึ่งภาพที่ผมคิดไว้ตั้งแต่แรกเขาอาจจะไม่มาคุยกับเราหรือเปล่าแต่ว่าพอทำงานเขาจริงๆเนี่ยเขาไนซ์มากแล้วไม่รู้สิครับผมรู้สึกสบายใจมากเวลาได้ร่วมงานกับเขาบางครั้งเวลาที่เขาเล่นผมก็ยังยืนดูแล้วยังแบบนี่แหละคือนักแสดงมืออาชีพที่ผมอยากจะเป็นแบบนั้น
He absolutely admires the team, Rick, Jason, Mr. Howard himself, Mr. Weir, he idolizes them and finds inspiration from them to love and bring out the best of his work. It was all worth the travel from Thailand and the 14-day quarantine just to be here and a part of the film. And it gives him a great feeling to watch them and just be a part of the project.
คือต้องบอกก่อนว่ารอนฮาวเวิร์ดเนี่ยคือเขาเป็นเขาความรู้สึกของผมคือเขาอยู่เหนือฮอลลีวูดไปอีกเขาเป็นผู้กำกับในเขาเป็นผู้กำกับที่ยิ่งใหญ่มากเพราะฉะนั้นการที่ผมได้มาทำงานกับเขาเนี่ยผมรู้สึกว่าครั้งหนึ่งในชีวิตถ้าผมไม่มาทำสิ่งเนี้ยผมไม่รู้ว่าจะได้ทำอีกเมื่อไหร่แล้วก็พอผมได้ call zoom กับเขาครั้งแรกแล้วเขาขอ call back หลังจากที่ผมไปแคสเป็นบทสมานแล้วเขาบอกว่าขอ call back เวียหน่อยขอ call back สุกลวัฒน์คณารถผมก็ตื่นเต้นมากแล้วก็ไม่รู้ว่าจะคุยอะไรกับบอนแล้วพอมาเจอรอนครั้งแรกในซูมซึ่งยังไม่ได้เจอตัวจริงผมรู้สึกประทับใจผมรู้สึกว่ารอนเป็นคนที่ nice มากแล้วก็เขาเป็นคนที่ทำงานง่ายมากๆแล้วก็เขาเป็นคนที่ให้กำลังใจนักแสดงและทีมงานทุกคนตลอดการทำงานที่นี่ยิ่งมาเจอตัวจริงที่นี่ผมรู้สึกว่าเขาเป็นคนที่ nice มากเขาบอกว่า Will you know เขาตาม Instagram ผมแล้วนะแล้วเขาก็อวดให้ผมดูว่าเนี่ยตาม Instagram เขาแล้วเหรอเนี่ยเขามาอวดรูปเขาอวดตอนที่เขาเด็กๆเขาก็เป็นนักแสดงนะก่อนที่จะมาเป็นผู้กำกับอวดหมาเขาอวดลูกสาวเขาเป็นคนที่ nice มากแล้วการทำงานกับรอนเป็นอะไรที่ perfect สำหรับการทำงานชีวิตการแสดงของผมที่สุดแล้วครับผมไม่รู้จะพูดอะไรผมพูดไม่ออกผมรู้สึกว่าชีวิตนี้ผมเจอรอนนี้ไม่รู้สิมัน amazing มากๆครับผม
This has been one of the highlights of my life working with Mr. Ron Howard on this film. I idolized him from his work in Hollywood, and if I didn't take this opportunity to work on this project, 13 Lives, with Mr. Howard, I don't know when the next chance or if any chance in the future could be. When he asked me to cast for this film and also gave a call back indicating that he wanted to proceed further via the Zoom call, I was most happy, most excited. Coming to the production in Australia and then working with Mr. Howard, I found him to be very easygoing. We soon later exchanged and talked about our social medias, our Instagrams. He showed me some photos of his childhood when he was an actor, some photos of his dog, some photos of his family, his daughter. And this is a big part of my life, and I'm grateful and glad I can be a part of it, working with everyone, but also especially Mr. Howard.
คนไทยใช่ไหม
ทุกคนที่เข้ามาเล่น
เรื่องนี้
เรื่องนี้ครับ
รู้สึกยังไงใช่ไหมฮะ
ครับผม
คือผมดีใจมากมากๆที่ภาพยนตร์เรื่องนี้มันเป็นภาพยนตร์ที่เกิดขึ้นจริงๆในประเทศไทยแล้วถูกสร้างเป็นภาพยนตร์ที่ใหญ่มากในของฮอลลีวูดแล้วก็ได้รอนฮาวเวิร์ดได้นักแสดงคุณภาพได้คอรินฟาเรลได้คุณวีโก้ได้หลายๆคนมากๆแล้วรวมถึงคนไทยที่เป็นนักแสดงจากประเทศไทยที่แคสมาร่วมแสดงในเรื่องนี้เยอะมากๆหลายคนมากๆผมรู้สึกว่าเราดีใจและภูมิใจที่ได้รับความสำคัญนะครับแล้วก็ทุกครั้งที่เรามาทำงานทั้งคนไทยที่ประเทศไทยทั้งคนไทยที่นี่คนไทยที่มาทำงานเป็นเอ็กซ์ตร้าก็ตามทุกคนมีความภูมิใจที่มีโอกาสได้เป็นส่วนหนึ่งของภาพยนตร์เรื่องนี้ภาพยนตร์ที่สร้างจากเรื่องจริงที่เกิดขึ้นจริงๆในประเทศไทยเหตุการณ์ที่ได้รับความสนใจจากทั่วโลกเป็นเหตุการณ์ที่ทุกคนคอยให้กำลังใจ ทุกคนอยากให้เหตุการณ์นี้มันออกมาดีอยากให้ทุกคนเด็กๆที่ติดอยู่ในถ้ำรอดซึ่งเหตุการณ์นั้นจบแบบแฮปปี้เอนดิ้งก็คือโอเคทุกคนเด็กๆทุกคนรอดโอเคอาจจะมีคนคนหนึ่งที่ต้องสูญเสียไปก็คือตัวผมก็คือจ่าแซมหรือว่าคุณสมานโอเคผมรู้สึกว่าภาพยนตร์เรื่องนี้มันไม่ใช่แค่สร้างขึ้นมาอีกครั้งหนึ่งเพื่อที่จะตอกย้ำว่าเหตุการณ์นี้มันเกิดขึ้นแล้วแต่ว่ามันสร้างขึ้นมาสำหรับผมนะครับมันสร้างขึ้นมาเพื่อคนไทยทุกๆคนสร้างขึ้นมาเพื่อเอ่อคนทั้งโลกที่รับรู้ถึงเหตุการณ์ที่เกิดขึ้นและผมเชื่อว่าโอ้โหมันจะ impact กับทุกๆคนมากเพราะว่าไม่รู้สิครับทุกคนมีความตั้งใจที่จะทำให้ภาพยนตร์เรื่องนี้มันออกมาดีที่สุดและสมจริงเรียลที่สุดเท่าที่จะทำได้และผมเชื่อว่าคนไทยทุกคนต้องมีความภาคภูมิใจกับภาพยนตร์เรื่องนี้
Working with the diversity on this production has really given me a good feeling, especially working alongside Mr. Colin and Mr. Vigo, also the other Thai actors. However, while working with these main cast, I've also enjoyed the feeling working alongside the people, the Thai people in Australia, the Thais from abroad, but also everyone else that makes this production what it is. It's an honor to play a significant role personally for myself, playing the role of Saman, but also knowing that this story is a real story and will have real impact and good intention, which will be told by the master himself, Mr. Ron Howard. So it's a highlight in my life, and I'm just grateful to be a part of the project.
There was a curious thing as you became, like everyone else in the world, a kind of an expert on cave diving and the Tham Luang cave system and everything else. There were details which you became obsessed by over and above the huge, basically emotional ringer that everyone was being put through. All these strange details, how the caves worked, how the kids got there, where the water was coming, could you pump it out? So all these things were going along, and I was completely hooked for 2 weeks on this, as was everyone else. And what I remember feeling was this strange involvement in this story happening literally on the other side of the world. So at first, I just could not see what you would gain from doing a drama where you know the end. I mean, it seemed a strange idea. What more was there to say or to tell? How would you tell this story? But the more I heard about Rick and John, Jason and Chris, the main divers, and especially when I got to meet them all, I knew that in the story of the events, which everyone in the world now knew, there was this other kind of thing, which to me was like an anti-superhero movie. It was like the reverse of any Marvel movie. These people were not superheroes. These were guys, very ordinary people, ordinary men who did absolutely extraordinary and superhuman things. So that, I thought, was a terrific way into what the story of the film, of a drama, could be. I think that the thing that, when I was starting to write the story and the screenplay that I worked on, the things that seemed to me the most terrifying was that the kids had vanished inside a cave and you did not know where they had gone. That to me is the nightmare of any parent, of anyone who has a brother or a son, a cousin, anything like that. You do not know what has happened to them. And that gap, which was 10 days before they were discovered, that gap is unimaginable to me. Rick is played by Viggo Mortensen, and Rick is an unlikely and rather unique character. He is an ex-firefighter who lives in a small house in Coventry in the Midlands in the UK. He's a prickly guy, he's dedicated, he's obsessive. He's very unknown. He's unfeted by the media or anything. He's a modest man who just happens to be the best cave rescuer in the world. He seems to stand prepared, still and prepared, not nervous, not excited, not gung-ho, but he has that stillness and a burden of destiny which he seems to take on himself. And as in all his other roles, the sort of courage and valor, humility. But I think it's in his performances that's that calmness in the face of danger that's the real strength that he would have to portray Rick. So I think that's somehow he can communicate the feeling of a soul which Rick has on the inside, but Rick does not let it out for other people. John Ferlanthen is being played by Colin Farrell, and John is the kind of mystery sidekick to Rick. But, John is a very ordinary guy. He's an IT specialist. He's a dad. He's a marathon runner. An ordinary guy, but as you see in the movie, not really like you or me. He runs marathons of 150 miles and cave dives 4 or 5 miles into a wet cave. So not exactly like you and me. But he has this very, very wry sense of humor. And that's what I think Colin Farrell really encapsulates. I think for a long while, Colin Farrell was the bad boy, the rebel, the twinkle in his eye, the sarcasm, the cynicism, the jokes. And now he has a vulnerability and a sense of trying to lay hold of some sort of stillness that's hidden deep inside him. And he may not get to that point, but you can see that struggle in him, both from his personal life that he's discussed a lot, but also as an actor. And I think that's what makes him a perfect fit for John and takes his portrayal of his character to the next level in the movie. Dr. Harry Harris is played by Joel Edgerton, a fantastic actor. And Harry Harris is really, you would call him a kind of unicorn in the world of cave diving. He is an expert, world-class cave diver, but he is also a trained doctor. And within medicine, he is a trained anesthesiologist. So there are not many Harry Harrises. He is a complete number one in a field of one. And he is part of an Australian group of cave divers known as the Wet Mules, because they are stubborn, they go the distance, and they're unafraid of pain. Chris is the baby-faced kid of the group. He is another IT expert. He's 20 years younger than Rick, 10 years younger than the others, but he's a rising star in the small world of these cave divers. He's led an expedition to a very deep cave in Mexico. He's an expert diver and technician. But although you might not think that to look at him, he has strength and power of endurance, which everyone is in awe of. Jason Mallinson is the opposite of Chris, the kind of Jason Statham lookalike. He's serious, he's intense, he's experienced, he's deadpan. He's been called as chatty as a brick wall. And if you were having a kind of prickly contest with him and Rick, it would be a difficult thing to tell who was most prickly. But he's a veteran diver who's very trusted and who has been involved with cave rescues with Rick. Also, he's a new father. So when he's in the cave, he has this terrific idea of giving the kids paper to write messages to their parents. Hope, belief, faith. Not necessarily religious, but hope, belief, and faith in one's own abilities. The hope, belief, and faith that you can do something good for your fellow human beings, that you can go outside yourself. But I think the main real life miracle aspect is undoubtedly the coming together of thousands of people united in one purpose. A human drama with an inspirational message, and believing that the impossible can be done and that what seems unachievable can be achieved, no matter the odds. The belief that there is a 1 in a million chance is worth taking. I think, in a word, what I would like audiences to take away from this film is inspiration. Inspiration and a sense of courage and of hope. A feeling that nothing is impossible, especially when all hope has gone. And I think also the importance of searching out answers and not giving up until you find the answer. We're not all going to be cave divers, but we all have things in our lives that seem impossible and weigh down heavily upon us. One of the things I think you can take away from the film, the story, is in our own lives is to lose the fear of failure, and that miracles are maybe not things that we wait for, but we can achieve by ourselves. And to do that, we don't have to be driven by ego or money or force, but we can also use honesty, self-belief, a common humanity that can be shared, and we can get the sense that we're not alone in this life.
The first time that I heard that the boys were trapped in the cave, I felt there was no hope that the boys would come out alive. And I think it seemed impossible that the boy can survive in the cave. Then people started coming from all over the world to join the rescue effort. And they made the impossible possible. That was miracle. And I felt that the rescue showed us that we don't have to separate by culture, religion, color or language. It brought everybody together and we can make it. It showed us the good sign of humanity, that the love and kindness still exist in this world. แล้วตอนนั้นน่ะพลอยเห็นข่าวที่แบบว่าเป็นภาพข่าวก็คือแบบแม่กำลังตะโกนเรียกชื่อลูกอยู่หน้าถ้ำอ่ะแล้วเขาก็ร้องไห้แล้วคือเสียงเนี่ยมันแบบเสียงของคุณแม่หลายๆท่านนะคือทุกคนเห็นข่าวทุกคนต้องร้องไห้ตามแน่นอนเพราะพลอยกับแม่เห็นแล้วก็คือแบบน้ำตาไหลเลยอ่ะพี่วิลลี่
I saw the scenes from the news of the parent who were at the entry of the cave, and they were screaming of the name of their boys, and it was really impacting, and it was really make me move. So I believe everybody who saw that image would be emotional of it.
ในตอนนั้นนะคะพลอยก็คิดว่าถ้าเกิดเป็นเราที่แบบอดข้าวไม่ได้กินข้าว1 วัน2 วัน3 วัน4 วันแค่คิดว่าแบบไม่ได้กินข้าวแค่2 วันอ่ะเราก็แบบไม่ไหวกันแล้วแต่ตอนที่เราตามข่าวค่ะเด็กๆแบบไม่ได้รับอาหารเลยเกือบ10 กว่าวันซึ่งตอนนั้นอ่ะทุกคนก็แบบคิดกันหมดแล้วทั้งข่าวทั้งหมอทั้งนักวิทยาศาสตร์ออกมาพูดแล้วว่าอุ้ยเลือดจะเสียเลือดจะเป็นพิษแบบพอเราตามข่าวอะไรแบบนี้เยอะเราก็แบบยิ่งคิดไปใหญ่เลยค่ะว่าโอ้โหไม่รอดแน่นอนแต่แบบวันที่นักดำน้ำเข้าไปเจอเด็กอันนั้นคือแบบว่าตอนฟังข่าวก็คือมันเป็นไปได้หรอว่าเด็กทุกคนยังมีชีวิตอยู่ด้วยตัวเองจากการกินน้ำแล้วก็แบบดูแลกันเองเนี่ยค่ะคือเด็กๆกับโค้ชก็คือเก่งมากทั้งแบบทั้งร่างกายและจิตใจเพราะว่าเราคิดว่าเป็นเราที่แบบต้องอยู่ในถ้ำที่มืดแล้วไม่เห็นอะไรเลยอาหารก็ไม่มีคนจะเข้ามาช่วยเมื่อไหร่ก็ไม่รู้คือมันแบบเขาผ่านจิตใจเขาผ่านมาหลายสภาวะมากๆอะค่ะเขาเก่งมากอันเนี้ยแล้วแบบพอทุกอย่างมันช่วยเหลือกันมาได้ออกมาได้คือมันแบบมันคือปาฏิหาริย์จริงๆค่ะ
So at first, I was skeptical because even imagine about yourself if it was only the second day that you were starving and had nothing to eat, and you need to survive in that kind of environment, it's hard already. But this boy, they survived by themselves without any food and drinking only like water they found in the cave to more than 10 days. It was really like something unimaginable. And imagine about how strong they could be physically and mentally to survive in that condition and make it possible to come out.
อย่างแรกเลยนะคะก็คือว่าคนส่วนใหญ่จะไม่รู้จักถ้ำหลวงนอกจากคนในพื้นที่ในภาคเหนือเขาจะรู้จักกันแต่จริงๆพลอยเป็นคนเชียงใหม่ก็คือคนภาคเหนือเหมือนกันพลอยก็ไม่เคยรู้จักถ้ำหลวงเพราะเราไม่ได้เป็นสายเที่ยวป่าอะไรเงี้ยค่ะหลังจากนั้นทุกคนก็รู้จักเฮ้ยถ้ำหลวงคือมีถ้ำที่ขนาดใหญ่แบบนี้ลึกขนาดนี้อยู่แล้วเด็กๆเข้าไปติดอยู่ตอนนั้นทุกคนก็คือคาดหวังว่าแบบอยากให้เด็กๆรอดออกมาทั้งที่มันจะดูแบบหมดหวังแล้วก็ตามทุกคนก็แบบอยากให้เด็กๆทุกคนรอดเพราะว่าอย่างพลอยเห็นคุณพ่อคุณแม่ของเขาที่แบบรอลูกอยู่ข้างนอกซึ่งตอนนั้นแบบทุกคนก็คือแบบส่งกำลังใจให้ว่าแบบขอให้เด็กๆรอดมีการแบบช่วยกันอธิษฐานมีการประกอบพิธีตามศาสนาต่างๆให้ที่แบบว่าช่วยกันอธิษฐานให้เด็กรอดออกมาค่ะแล้วก็ทางหน่วยงานของไทยต่างๆก็ช่วยส่งกำลังเข้าไปช่วยเด็กด้วยแต่ก็โชคดีที่แบบว่ามีนักนำน้ำถ้ำที่แบบมืออาชีพที่เขาแบบเป็นโปรเฟชชั่นอลด้านนี้เข้ามาช่วยด้วยอีกแรงเนี่ยค่ะมันก็เลยทำให้เกิดว่าแบบเจอเด็กแล้วก็ช่วยเด็กออกมาได้
So the sentimental was really interesting because at that time everybody seems to join into the one body of hoping the kids will come out. Everybody was talking about that, and when the first rescue mission started, we saw a lot of effort from different group of people. Including different organizations and also different group of people who try to pray for them in their own cultural belief. And that was something really impressive for me.
คนไทยช่วยเด็กยังไงบ้างเนี่ยหรอพี่บิลลี่เพราะว่าคนไทยตั้งแต่คนในพื้นที่อะค่ะก็ส่งคนติดต่อหน่วยงานรัฐแล้วก็ทำทุกอย่างติดต่อทุกหน่วยงานเพื่อจะมาช่วยเด็กๆแล้วก็มีทั้งอาสาสมัครที่แบบขอเข้าไปช่วยเด็กๆอีกคือทุกคนร่วมแรงร่วมใจที่อยากจะช่วยเด็กๆมากค่ะแล้วพวกเราก็พยายามสุดความสามารถที่จะช่วยเด็กๆออกมาพอมีคนจากประเทศต่างๆผู้เชี่ยวชาญจากด้านต่างๆเข้ามาช่วยอีกก็ยิ่งจะทำให้แบบการช่วยเหลือมันแบบเป็นไปได้ดีขึ้นเพราะว่าแต่ละที่ก็มีความรู้เฉพาะทางที่เชี่ยวชาญไม่เหมือนกันแล้วแบบพอคนเก่งๆมารวมกันแบบนี้ค่ะมันก็เลยเกิดปาฏิหาริย์ขึ้นได้
So we were trying every way possible by contacting the relating organization in the regional area just to help them initially. And after that, the rescue mission expand into international effort. And by that time, a lot of people from different countries joined together to make this mission possible. And that is when the miracle really happened.
สำหรับพลอยนะคะก็คือการที่ได้แสดงเป็นแม่ของเด็กคนนึงที่ติดไปในถ้ำนี้พลอยรู้สึกว่ามันเป็นการถ่ายทอดอารมณ์ของคนที่มีความหวังคือสถานการณ์ในเรื่องมันจะเป็นแบบว่าเราแบบเหมือนจะมีหวังแล้วก็จะมีเหตุการณ์ที่ทำให้หมดหวังอีกแล้วก็มีความหวังแล้วก็ทำให้หมดหวังอีกซึ่งมันก็เป็นชีวิตของคนคนนึงแบบทุกคนบนโลกส่วนใหญ่จะเป็นอย่างนี้ที่แบบว่าเราจะมีเรื่องให้แบบมีหวังแล้วก็หมดหวังมีหวังแล้วก็หมดหวังตลอดเวลาแต่ว่าสุดท้ายแล้วคำตอบของเราทุกคนก็คือว่าเราก็ต้องมีความหวังที่จะแบบดำเนินชีวิตต่อไปต่อให้แบบว่าเรื่องราวมันจะแบบเลวร้ายแค่ไหนหรือว่าบททดสอบเนาะบททดสอบในชีวิตแต่ละอันมันเป็นสิ่งที่แบบเราไม่อยากได้รับเทสนี้เราไม่อยากผ่านอันนี้แต่ว่าความหวังมันก็คือสิ่งเดียวที่แบบว่าจะทำให้เรามีชีวิตต่อไปจริงๆค่ะ
So my character is a mother of one of the boys in the cave, and the message that I was delivering was mainly about hope. My role is in my role, I need to deal with a lot of situation that there was hope, and then the hope was gone, coming the despair, and then the cycle continue. There is hope, and another time despair, hope and despair, and I feel like this is not different from our life as a human. We all need to face these kind of situations, and the only way that we can go forward is to have hope.
สิ่งที่เด่นชัดที่สุดของพลอยในเรื่องนี้นะคะก็คือว่าปาฏิหาริย์น่ะมันเกิดขึ้นจากที่ทุกคนร่วมกันทำเรื่องเนี้ยให้เกิดขึ้นมันมาจากการกระทำของมนุษย์ปาฏิหาริย์มันมาจากการกระทำของมนุษย์ที่เราไม่ทิ้งให้คนที่แบบรอความช่วยเหลือเราไม่ได้แบบทิ้งเขาไปเฉยๆแต่เราอะแคร์เขาเราสนใจเขาเราให้ความสำคัญกับเขาเราเข้าไปช่วยเขาการช่วยเหลือนั่นแหละเพราะว่ามันเป็นแบบมันคือปาฏิหาริย์มันคือมิราเคิลที่แบบว่ามนุษย์แบบช่วยเหลือซึ่งกันและกันแล้วก็ทำให้มันเกิดขึ้นอันนี้ค่ะมันคือปาฏิหาริย์
For me, miracle is man-made. It wouldn't be possible without everybody coming together to join in this effort, and we show that we care of each other and the one who is in need of help. And because human can cooperate, this is when the miracle happen.
เหตุการณ์นี้มันแสดงให้เห็นว่าถ้าเกิดทุกคนทุกฝ่ายโดยแบบเราไม่ได้แบ่งแยกเลยว่าเขาจะเชื้อชาติอะไรพูดภาษาอะไรคือทุกคนเป็นมนุษย์ที่อยู่ด้วยกันบนโลกใบนี้เราสามารถสร้างสิ่งที่ดีงามต่างๆได้อีกต่อไปเรื่อยๆเพราะว่าเหตุการณ์นี้มันโชว์แล้วว่ามันพิสูจน์แล้วว่ามันเกิดขึ้นได้จริงๆถ้าเกิดทุกคนบนโลกทุกฝ่ายต่างช่วยเหลือร่วมมือกันเราทำทุกอย่างเกิดขึ้นได้หมดเลยค่ะ
This event shows the best of us, regardless of language, regardless of nationalities. If we come together, we can make goodness happen, and we can spread this good thing to the other people around the world. And it is like the positive energy that we can share.
I remember when I was at the airport at the time, waiting for my flight from Bangkok to Chiang Rai. And, I asked my team to send me the maps and any information that they have about the geologies and the areas. And then when I realized it was 10,000 acres of land that we have to deal with in terms of hydrologies and, how groundwater flow and things. And especially, it's not even in Thailand. Most of the catchment area that affects the flow actually in Myanmar, which is that's even more difficult. And then I realized, it was like, 12 kids and one coach, they were trapped in there. And they were just like, teenager, not even a teenager, just one of those boy or teenagers. And they were just kind of, my feeling was just kind of shocked, like how are we going to find these boys? Even when we found them, how are we going to bring them out? And they were in the cave without food and water for so long. When we found them, will we found the bodies? Or will they still be alive at the time? There was the thing that actually came to my mind where I was sitting at the airport. I remember it was like around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. We all were like, taking the night off. Went to our hotel, and that's what they make the announcement of the boy was found. There was people were sharing, this is it, we did it. We found the boys. A lot of sharing, a lot of really, I mean, the whole mission was just, people were just like gone crazy. Let's put it that way. The parent was so relieved that all of the 13 kids were around, still alive. Because at the time, some of the parents thought that the kid was dead. And when it happened, it changes everything, including me as well. But for me, first time I heard about it, the first thing that's come to my mind is this mission is going to be even harder. because we found the boys, and how are we going to get them out? That's even harder than just search for the boys. So that night, I mean, I couldn't sleep. I was like thinking about what are the options that are available for us as a rescue worker at the site, and what are the realistic options, and what about the weathers? Why, you know, we're working against time at the time. So any options, any solution is need to be really precise and critical, that it needs to be some sort of what crazy. And the whole country were praying to, you know, to that we as a rescue worker found the boys. It was just everyone's glued on the television, radio, social media. It would just become viral, I would say, on social media as well. People are talking about it. And, you know, there was a lot of volunteers, a lot of experts offering help any way they can. Even they were not there themselves, you know. People are offering to send a supply if the rescue worker need anything. The next day, people will donate it for us. That's really generous of them. At the campsite, we have volunteers, not just help us with engineering part, but they also help us with other parts, accommodation, washing our clothes, cleaning the restroom, you know, securities, moving our equipment. I mean, it's a lot of manpower. It was a big movement of the collaboration, not just in Thailand, but I'm talking about international level as well. But in Thailand, it's just amazing, you know, like it's never been anything like this. This is actually the first thing that happened is mobilize the people to work together for this cause. There was one example that we were up in the mountain, me and my team, and we ran out of materials like plastic bag and you know, the pipe to divert the waters. So we kind of posted on social media. So the next day, people bring all the equipment to us at the location. It was just that sense of collaboration and giving that it still impressed me even nowadays. Ron and the teams did an amazing job on trying to replicate the setting. It's a lot of work and detail go into that, I'm sure. There was some scene of diverting the water, some scene of, you know, explosion inside the cave. I mean, this looks really, really amazing. And to be seeing that again on the big screen, I'm sure it's gonna bring, you know, a memory to all of us as a rescue worker ourselves, because that is like Tham Luang Cave rescue mission is. I'm sure I could speak in all, but as a rescue worker, that it's one of the best memories in our life. You know, it's one of those memories that you cannot forget. This is one of the moments where we put our politics and our differences aside. At the time, the politics was so divided in Thailand, and we just kind of put everything aside. The soldiers, the government workers, the volunteers. It doesn't matter what side are you on. You know, we put our differences aside and then work together to accomplish this mission. And on the last day, all those cheering, all those celebrations, the boys who are out, the parents, the smile on the faces of the parents, the families, all those have from the boys and their family, it was just broadcasted around Thailand and the world. I think that's something that all of us could be related to, you know, like some of us has a kid, you know, some of us used to be a kid like that at a certain time in our life. And if we look back, I think we all could relate it to that moment. You know, the achievement, the celebration, the unities. in terms of international wise, I think this is one of the rescue missions that so many people from different background, a different belief system, a different mindset, a different culture actually come to work together. We are really grateful for all the international help that we got at the time when the rescue happened, because those help, those expertise, those equipment is so critical to the mission. I hope that I could speak in behalf of the Thai people that we are really grateful from all the volunteers, right, to the divers, and then as well as the diver from different countries like Australia, UK's and some of the Europe country. And we're just so grateful. We just don't know how to say thanks enough for all the risks that they took to get those boys out.
In this case, a producer who knew me, called Gabrielle Turner, had teamed up with a producer called PJ von Sandvik, who I'd never met. And PJ had got the rights to the British divers story on this. And Gabby said to PJ, why don't we go to Bill, that's me, to do this. So they came to me. And to be honest, I knew nothing about it. I wasn't pursuing this or anything like that. But of course, I immediately looked into it. And what I discovered was this was just made in heaven for a movie. I mean, I don't want to diminish the reality of the suffering, but the sheer storytelling of the actual events, you could not make it up. So I very gratefully accepted the gig. This is a real story. These are real people, real lives. Somebody actually died, real death. You can't mess with that. You have an absolute duty to know what the real events were, what happened and why, and to reflect that in telling the story as best as you can. So yes, there was an immense amount of research. It wasn't all done by me. The production team hired a very brilliant researcher, and he just covered absolutely everything. I mean, I had stacks of material, interviews with people, timelines, scientific information to work with. I mean, like too much, it was overwhelming, but it's important. And my job as a storyteller, as a screenwriter, is to find my way through all of the real stuff and create 2 hours of story. I mean, Ron is extraordinary because he's got two quite distinct qualities. One is he's very good on process. He's very interested in it. He's very clever at it. He likes to work out exactly, what the machines had to do, what the science had to do, or whatever. And so he worked through that with me so that he could understand it and so that he could make sure it was clearer in the film. But the second thing is he's very good, and this is why I love him, he's very good on emotions and characters. So, we would talk about, is this the right point at which to tell the part of the story that's very tragic, which is the death of the Thai diver, for example. And working with him, we would try different arrangements of the events to tell the story as clearly as possible and to show how it motivated people. So this is the story of a group of Thai kids. They're in their age, like from 13 to 16, and they're soccer players, and they go off after a soccer match just for a bit of fun into a cave in the mountains, which is easier to go into. People go in a lot. It's not dangerous, but it's deep. And what they don't know is it's been raining way north in the mountains, not where they are. And that water has been trickling down through the mountains for a long time. And suddenly, when they're deep in the cave, which is kind of scary, but okay, it hits and they are trapped. They're in a bit of the cave where they can not be underwater, but to get out, it's full of water. They can't get out. So they're stuck. So from then on, the story we have is, will they ever get out? How will they get out? And that, very simple Jeopardy tale, but with an awful lot of complexity along the way. He's actually a very philosophical guy, a very thoughtful guy. And I found him extremely interesting and also very honest. And he's not interested in publicity. He doesn't want to be famous, doesn't want to make money. These people are volunteers. They don't charge money. It's just extraordinary. And I absolutely loved that. So when I heard Viggo Mortensen was going to play him, I thought, yes, this guy, you know, Viggo he's far out himself as a human being. He'll get this. He will deliver this, which of course he did in spades. John has a kid. He has an ex-wife, and he has a son. And that makes it very different for him. Rick doesn't. But John, you know all the time there's some connection happening in him between these boys stuck in the cave and his own son. And you don't have to say it. It's obviously there. And he's a slightly softer guy than Rick. He's younger, 10 years younger. Rick is always the leader. Rick's the hard man and the leader. But kind of Rick needs John. And I loved the relationship between them. I think having them on set was a terrific bonus. I wasn't there myself, but I just know that for the actors and for Ron, to have the real people saying, actually, you put it on this way, you do this, at this point you'd feel like, it's gold, it's pure gold, and you don't always have that opportunity. So incredibly important and great for the divers themselves, because I think they've seen a lot of films made of this stuff that are very unrealistic, and they were very keen that it should be realistic. So this whole event caught the imagination of the world. It was a big news story. It was on the news every day. And that attracted people who thought they might be able to help. And mostly within Thailand, an enormous response happened within Thailand, both from the government. I mean, the government just threw everything at it. They said, whatever it takes, we will pay. But also from individuals who thought they might have a skill, whether it was rock climbing, diving, of course, but also cooking food, washing clothes, whatever. People just came. There were like 10,000 people in the camp around the cave at its height. And these were all volunteers, nobody asking for any money. They just said, if I can help, I'll help. And I think within Thailand, there was this feeling that these boys were our boys. It was like the whole nation's children were stuck. You know what? Rick and John will say, this is not a miracle. It's a technical accomplishment. They worked out how to do it, and they did it. And that's not a miracle. But I think there is a miraculous, well, perhaps that's the wrong word. There's an extraordinary and unusual side to it, which is that all the people concerned managed to keep hoping. They managed to keep trying at a point when, honestly, they had every reason to give up. That didn't happen here. And that's extraordinary. I think it was like a massive national act of will by Thailand. And without that, they would have died. So I think you can say it's a sort of miracle that so many people chose to believe and to go on believing and to do what was necessary. I think that quality of the triumph of what's best in human beings coming through this story. I hope people come out of this film and just feel better about being human, feel better about their fellow humans, feel more generous, feel more hopeful, feel more excited.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and comment on the video if you enjoyed it. Click and watch our suggested video playlist right now for more entertaining videos. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released.